You will honor me the way a wife is required to honor a husband, because I will not be made out of fools.
Some actors get the role that's supposed to change everything, and it does, just not in the way anyone expects. Billy Zane stood at the center of Titanic, the highest-grossing film in history at the time. Over $1 billion, a global phenomenon. And yet, instead of becoming a long-term leading man, his career moved in a different direction. Not down, just different. So, what really happened after the biggest moment of his career? Let's peel it back. Billy Zane was born on February 24th, 1966, in Chicago, Illinois. His full name is William George Zane Jr. His parents, Talia and William George Zane Sr., ran a medical technical school. They were also amateur actors, performing in local productions when they could. His older sister, Lisa Zane, would later pursue acting as well. In that household, acting wasn't treated as something mystical or unreachable. It was simply part of life, something you prepared for, practiced, and did alongside regular work. Zane grew up watching that balance, responsibility during the day, performance when the opportunity came. It gave him an early understanding that acting wasn't about fame. It was about showing up and doing the work. As a teenager, he attended Haran Camp of the Theater Arts in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, a place where young performers could immerse themselves in stagecraft during the summers. He spent a year abroad at the American School in Switzerland before graduating from the Francis W. Parker School in Chicago, a school that had previously counted Daryl Hannah and Jennifer Beals among its alumni. By the time he finished high school, Zane already knew what he wanted to do. There was no deliberation, no backup plan. He moved to Los Angeles almost immediately. That kind of certainty at 18 is either reckless or clarifying. In Zane's case, it turned out to be both. And here's where the story picks up speed. Within 3 weeks of arriving in Hollywood, Zane landed his first screen role. He was cast as Match, one of Biff Tannen's gang members, in Robert Zemeckis' Back to the Future in 1985. He was 19 years old. That kind of early luck is exciting, but it also creates a particular kind of expectation, both inside yourself and from the people watching you. You arrived fast. So now what? For the next few years, Zane worked steadily, but without a defining breakout. He appeared in Critters in 1986. He took roles in television movies, including a starring part in The Brotherhood of Justice alongside Kiefer Sutherland. He showed up in episodes of Murder, She Wrote, and Matlock. He reprised a small role as Match in Back to the Future Part 2 in 1989. These were not leading parts. They were the kind of early credits that signal an actor is present, available, willing to learn, and game for almost anything. But they did not yet tell you who Billy Zane was going to be. They told you he was there. They told you he could hold the frame. They did not tell you what he was capable of when the material let him loose. Then came Dead Calm. Released in 1989 and directed by Philip Noyce, Dead Calm was an Australian psychological thriller starring Nicole Kidman and Sam Neill. Zane played Huey Warner, a deeply unsettling man rescued from a sinking schooner who turns out to be a violent and manipulative killer. The role required Zane to oscillate between charm and menace, sometimes within the same scene, sometimes within the same glance. He was magnetic. He was frightening. He was both of those things simultaneously, which is not easy to do. Critics noticed. He earned a nomination for the Chicago Film Critics Association Award for Most Promising Actor. And more importantly, the film demonstrated something that would define the best of Zane's work going forward. He had an ability to hold contradictions in the same frame. He was handsome in a way that could be either wholesome or threatening, depending on how the camera framed him. He had an intensity that was physical before it was verbal. He could be perfectly still and deeply unnerving, or broad and captivating. That kind of range is supposed to be the thing that opens every door in Hollywood. Supposed to be. Coming out of Dead Calm, Zane's career took on a recognizable shape, though it was a shape the industry did not always know how to market. In 1990, he appeared in Memphis Belle as Lieutenant Val Kozlowski, a bombardier in a World War II ensemble cast. In 1991, he joined the second season of David Lynch's Twin Peaks as John Justice Wheeler, a charming businessman who becomes romantically involved with Audrey Horne. In 1992, he appeared alongside Tilda Swinton in Sally Potter's film adaptation of Virginia Woolf's Orlando. In 1993, he played the Shakespearean actor Mr. Fabian in Tombstone and took a starring role in the action film Sniper. Look at that list for a moment. David Lynch, Sally Potter, Tilda Swinton, a war ensemble, a revisionist western, a military action film. That isn't a narrow trajectory. It's the resume of an actor who kept choosing variety. But variety is harder to sell than identity. Hollywood prefers actors who can be summarized in a sentence. Zane couldn't be. He was the handsome leading man who kept gravitating toward the edges of the frame. He was the villain who kept showing you the person underneath the villainy. He was the genre actor who kept showing up in art house films. The energy that defined his performances was always a little bit contradictory. In Twin Peaks, he was the handsome, reassuring presence who also felt slightly too perfect to trust, as if the brightness itself was concealing something. In Dead Calm, he was the charming stranger whose smile could flip into something reptilian without warning. In Tombstone, he brought a theatrical flourish to a supporting role that could have been entirely forgettable in anyone else's hands. The pattern was not really about playing villains. It was about playing men who carried an appealing surface with something unpredictable underneath. Something the camera loved, but the audience couldn't quite settle into. In 1995, he appeared as the collector in Tales from the Crypt Presence, Demon Knight, a horror film in which he played a henchman of Satan with almost gleeful relish. The film was campy, but Zane's performance was committed and genuinely entertaining. He understood tone instinctively. He knew how to calibrate between sincerity and style, how to give a B-movie an A-level presence without winking too hard at the audience. That is a specific skill. Not everyone has it. And then came the turn, or more accurately, the two turns that arrived almost simultaneously and pulled in opposite directions. In 1996, Zane starred as the title character in The Phantom, a superhero adventure film based on Lee Falk's classic comic strip. He had trained for over a year and a half to physically embody the character, studying the original comic artwork to replicate the Phantom's posture and body language on screen. He was a genuine fan of the source material. He had competed against other actors, including Bruce Campbell, to win the role. This was not a paycheck job. This was a passion project dressed as a studio tentpole. The film was a financial disappointment. Made on a budget of approximately $45 million, it grossed only about $17 million at the domestic box office. It opened the same weekend as The Rock and had to compete with the general gravity of blockbusters like Mission Impossible and, a few weeks later, Independence Day. It shared the fate of other period piece comic book adaptations from that era, The Rocketeer in 1991 and The Shadow in 1994. These were films made with sincerity for characters that audiences were not ready to embrace in that particular way at that particular time. Phantom has since developed a cult following through home video, but in 1996, it was seen as a miss. And in Hollywood, a miss at the box office when you are the lead tends to linger in the industry's memory far longer than it should. It becomes part of the calculation the next time your name comes up for a role. Not the only part, but part. Just 1 year later, Zane appeared as Cal Hockley in James Cameron's Titanic. Cal Hockley was the wealthy, controlling fiancé of Rose DeWitt Bukater, the obstacle standing between the doomed lovers, played by Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio. It was the biggest film of 1997. It was, for a time, the highest-grossing film in history, and Zane's performance was a significant part of why the emotional machinery of that story worked. Cal needed to be genuinely threatening, but also recognizably human. Not a monster. A man. A man who believed he was entitled to everything he had, including the woman he was engaged to, and whose cruelty emerged not from sadism, but from a kind of wounded privilege. Zane made him vain and jealous and occasionally pitiable. He let you see the insecurity beneath the arrogance. He let you understand, even if you did not sympathize, that Cal Hockley was not born a villain. He was made one by the world he inhabited and the values he inherited. You hated him, but you understood him, and that tension gave the love story its dramatic oxygen. Without a worthy antagonist, the romance collapses into sentimentality. Zane made sure it never did. The film earned the cast a Screen Actors Guild Award nomination, and Zane won a Blockbuster Entertainment Award for Favorite Supporting Actor. He was suddenly visible on a global scale. Billions of people had seen his face, and yet the career surge that should have followed, the one that actors dream about after being part of a once-in-a-generation hit, did not materialize in the way most people would have predicted. This isn't a failure story. It's about timing. About what happens when an actor's strengths don't match what the industry is looking for at that exact moment. To understand what happened next, you have to look at Hollywood in the late 1990s. Franchises were taking over. Mid-budget adult dramas were shrinking. Studios were becoming brand-driven and risk-averse. The middle lane, where actors like Zane often worked, was disappearing. If you were a male actor in that transitional period, the path to sustained stardom was increasingly narrow. You were either a romantic lead, an action star, or you were fighting for the same handful of prestige roles every award season. There was less room in the middle, less room for the guy who could do everything, but did not slot cleanly into a single lane. The actors who thrived in that era were often the ones who could be reduced to a phrase, a single quality that a marketing team could build a campaign around. And Zane defied reduction. Zane did not fit neatly into any of those categories. He was too intense for the romantic comedies of the era. He was too interesting, too capable of darkness for the straightforward action roles. And the villain lane, which he had proven he could absolutely dominate, was not a lane that Hollywood traditionally built sustained leading careers on. Playing Cal Hockley had given him enormous visibility, but it had also cemented a particular association in the public imagination. The industry saw a man who was very, very good at being the person you root against. There is a particular trap that comes with playing a memorable villain in a universally beloved film. The audience remembers you. They recognize your face on the street, at airports, in restaurants. But the emotional residue is complicated. You are forever attached to a specific feeling, and that feeling is not warmth. It is a kind of glamorous hostility. You are the face of the thing they were rooting against. That is a powerful form of visibility, but it is not the kind that naturally converts into sympathy or into the benefit of the doubt when you show up in a different kind of role. For some actors, that becomes a permanent artistic identity. For others, it becomes something they spend the rest of their career quietly, persistently working to move beyond, one project at a time. Zane, for his part, has never been the kind of public figure who courts constant media attention or manufactures controversy. He is not reclusive, but he is not performatively present in the way that the celebrity economy increasingly demands. He has given interviews over the years. He has shown up at premieres and festivals. He has done press for his projects. But he has not built a personal brand around being known for being known. He has not turned his private life into a public narrative. There's no scandal here. There's no dramatic fall. There's no behind-the-scenes disaster. There's an actor who, after reaching a certain level of global exposure, seems to have made a series of choices that prioritized the texture of the work over the maintenance of maximum visibility. That is a perfectly legitimate way to build a life in this industry. But it is not a way that generates breathless coverage or fuels a comeback narrative, because there was never a departure to come back from. The work never stopped. The attention simply moved elsewhere, as it always does, and Zane did not chase it when it left. And in the absence of that kind of public story, people tend to fill in the blanks with whatever narrative feels most satisfying. They assume something went wrong. They look for the dramatic explanation. But sometimes the real explanation is simply that a person kept working, kept choosing, and kept making decisions based on criteria that had nothing to do with what the outside world expected of them. After Titanic, Zane continued to work with remarkable consistency. In 2001, he was instrumental in getting The Believer made, Henry Bean's film about a Jewish man drawn to neo-Nazism, which won the Grand Jury Prize at the Sundance Film Festival. Zane played Curtis Zampf. That same year, he appeared as himself in Zoolander, a brief cameo that became one of the film's most quoted moments and took on a life of its own in comedy culture. He appeared in John Sayles' Silver City in 2004. He took a recurring role on the television series Charmed in 2005, playing Drake, a poetry-loving ex-demon, a role that let him be playful and sincere in a way the action and thriller projects did not always allow. He voiced Ansem, the main antagonist of the video game Kingdom Hearts, in 2002. He appeared on Broadway in the musical Chicago, playing the slick lawyer Billy Flynn. He worked in the Turkish film industry, appearing in Valley of the Wolves, Iraq in 2006. He continued taking roles in independent films, television movies, genre pictures, and international co-productions. He appeared in the Sniper franchise across multiple installments. He popped up in Zoolander 2 in 2016. He took on guest roles in television series like DC's Legends of Tomorrow. By some counts, he has appeared in well over 150 productions across his career. That is not the output of someone who stopped caring. That is the output of someone who never stopped. The nature of these choices tells you something important about the person making them. He did not retreat from the industry. He did not stop working. He did not wait around for a studio to hand him the perfect role. He shifted the terrain on which he operated. Many of these projects were lower budget than what you might expect from someone who had starred in the highest-grossing film in history. Many were outside the mainstream American studio system entirely. But Zane kept showing up, kept bringing genuine commitment, and kept refusing to treat any role as beneath his effort. And then there is the painting. During the 7 months of filming Titanic on location in Mexico, Zane began creating visual art. He turned a garage into a makeshift studio and started painting in an abstract expressionist style, using house paint, found objects, and recycled materials. The catalyst was partly Julian Schnabel's film Basquiat, which had shown him a version of art making that was immediate, physical, and improvisational. Something about the process connected with the same instincts he used as an actor, the ability to create under pressure, to respond to the moment, to let controlled chaos produce something unexpected. The practice stuck. Over the years, Zane has exhibited his paintings and photography at galleries and fairs in Los Angeles, London, Budapest, Milan, Miami, and Thessaloniki. He has shown work at Art Basel. He creates most of his paintings outdoors, under fleeting daylight, on film locations, using materials he finds on site. He has described the process as being about self-imposed restrictions, a controlled chaos that encourages what he has called beautiful accidents. This is not a footnote to a film career. It is a second creative life that has run parallel to his acting work for nearly 3 decades. And the fact that it began during the production of the very film that gave him his highest level of mainstream visibility says something quiet but significant about what this particular artist was looking for. Even at the moment when everything was supposed to be about the movie, he was already reaching for something beyond it. Billy Zane's influence is not the kind that gets measured in awards nominations or opening weekend grosses. It operates more quietly than that. He demonstrated that a villain in a blockbuster could be layered rather than cartoonish. Cal Hockley is not a one-note antagonist. He is a man shaped by his era, his social class, and his own limitations. That performance set a standard for how large-scale commercial films could treat their adversaries, giving them enough humanity to make the conflict feel genuinely earned. His work in Dead Calm anticipated the kind of psychological thriller performances that would become far more celebrated in later decades. The archetype of the charming predator, the man whose surface is immaculate and whose interior is corrosive, is now well-worn territory in film and television. Zane was occupying that space before it had a name or a prestige television series built around it, and the shape of his career itself. The willingness to move between studio films and independence, between American productions and international ones, between acting and visual art, between leading roles and character parts, is a model that more actors are now openly embracing. The idea that a creative life does not have to follow a single upward trajectory, that it can move laterally and still carry meaning and dignity and genuine artistic satisfaction, is something Zane lived out long before it became fashionable to talk about in interviews. He did not announce a philosophy. He just made choices, one after another. And and the choices accumulated into something that looked, in hindsight, like a philosophy all along. As of the mid-2020s, Zane remains active on multiple fronts. He played Marlon Brando in Waltzing with Brando, a biographical drama directed by Bill Fishman that premiered at the 2024 Torino Film Festival and was released theatrically in the United States in September 2025. The casting felt appropriate in ways that went beyond physical resemblance. Brando was himself an actor who resisted the industry's desire to simplify him, who followed his curiosity into strange places, who refused to be only the thing people remembered him for. There's a through line there, even if you do not want to push the comparison too far. Zane also wrote and directed the existentialist dark comedy Hallway/Night, which was acquired during the Cannes Film Festival. He continues to take acting roles across a range of projects, from indie thrillers to television films. His painting practice continues and has its own trajectory in the gallery world, independent of his film work and judged on its own terms. He is not waiting for a comeback because he never left. He is working. The distinction matters. So, what happens when a moment arrives and the industry still cannot figure out where to put you? Maybe you stop waiting for the industry to figure it out. Maybe you keep moving, keep making, keep painting on set between takes. Maybe you build a creative life that does not look like what everyone expected, but that holds together on its own terms. Maybe you let go of the version of success that was written for you by other people and build the one that actually fits. Billy Zane didn't disappear. He shifted. After Titanic, he didn't try to chase the same kind of spotlight. He kept working in film, in television, and art. Not louder, not bigger, just differently. That kind of career requires quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need headlines to validate it. If this story changed the way you think about a career you thought you already understood, I would appreciate it if you left a comment below. And if you are not already subscribed, consider it. There are more stories like this one worth telling.